So again, welcome everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're joining us from today. From my side, it's my 8:30 p.m. here in Australia, so not too late, but not too early as well. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the lands from which I'm joining today, the Turrbal and Yugara people of Brisbane, here in Queensland, Australia, and pay my respects to elders, past, present, and emerging. I also acknowledge that many different lands and waters from which are each joining us across the region or even the globe, because I know we do have participants from outside Asia Pacific as well. So welcome to this space. It's wonderful to have you here in session two of our RAFT APAC series. So again, we'd like to know who's joining us in the room. Do drop a quick introduction in the chat, share your name, organization, advocacy, or even your LinkedIn or Facebook pages, links. Also, to make sure, do make sure to update your Zoom name into your name, country, and also feel free to include your pronouns as well. We'd like to make these spaces as inclusive as possible. A few housekeeping reminders for all Zoom experts, but just a quick reminder, if you're able to turn on your camera, please do. So we'd like to mimic an in-person gathering and make it really something that's, yeah, we're able to connect with each other. Please keep your mic on mute so we can avoid background noise while the session is ongoing. Use the chat function for networking or to share your perspectives and insights on the topic, on the different speakers that we'll be sharing today, but also to ask your questions. So we do have moderators and members of the team of RAF APAC who would be keeping an eye out of those questions. And then we'll have a time for Q&A and discussion. So again, while we do have speakers and panelists that are experts and are going to be bringing a lot of wisdom to the conversation, this is a space for everyone. So we recognize that everyone's bringing different perspectives and expertise as well. So please participate and feel free to share as well during the discussion, open conversation. And before we go further, I hope it's okay to have a quick screenshot, so quick photo from everyone. If you're able to open your camera, please open. Otherwise, it's all right. So yeah, I think we have 36 people now in the room. Can see people opening their camera. We'll give you a few seconds, and then our team will be taking the photo. We do have two pages so far. Okay, please flash your smile. One, two, yeah, one more. Thank you so much. Lovely to see everyone. Yeah, I can see some sunlight on your side of the world. That's great. Yeah, for those who are joining this space for the first time, so this is RAFT, the Regional Agri-Food Transition APAC Network. It's a CatalystNow Asia-Pacific collaboration being anchored by Rejuvrth. So just a bit of information about CatalystNow. Amos, if you can go back to the slides, please. It's launched at the World Economic Forum. So Catalyst Now is a platform that accelerates collaboration between systems change actors across sectors. Yeah, it doesn't have to be just agri-food. We do have members coming from mental health, education, different topics, pretty much. And RAF is it's our regional network connecting social innovators, entrepreneurs, researchers, and practitioners across Asia Pacific working to transform our food systems. But as I mentioned, I think we do have participants coming from the global community, so they're also very much welcome in this space. During the first session back in March, we explored the why, unpacking the reasons behind the 30% of food never reaches the plate, which is really mind-boggling, right? Today, we go deeper, scanning the interventions in supply chain solutions that are or aren't closing the gaps. We're calling it the missing third, and it's time we brought it into focus. At this juncture, I'm delighted to introduce our moderator for today, who will guide us through the session. So he's the global head of sustainability at Olam Agri. He's responsible for shaping the sustainability strategy and overseeing the implementation of projects within the company's food and feed businesses. This covers initiatives in climate action, socioeconomic impacts, farmer livelihoods, regenerative agriculture, and identifying high-risk sourcing landscapes via traceability and landscape-level ecosystem services. He is a seasoned conservation and ecology scientist who has dedicated himself to advancing nature based sustainable solutions that deliver impact on conservation, restoration, regenerative agriculture, green finance, and climate change for nearly 2 decades. He holds a PhD in climate and environmental sciences from the National University of Singapore. So without further ado, let's all welcome Dr. Shailendra Mishra, who will be moderating today's session. Over to you, Shailendra.
Well, thank you so much, John, and welcome everyone. I mean, today is a very, very key important topic, like rescuing the missing third and from our ASEAN supply chain interventions for the food lost and food waste, right? So, well, we have now like almost 43 participants, and just looking at some of the notes which I could sense and get from Catalyst now earlier. I mean, from their first series of events, it was more what I could was with academia as well as some private sector and development banks as the speakers. What I could gather, one key takeaway that any wasted food is like a wasted carbon, right? So, I mean, that's one of the key things that I took from those notes. And at Olam Agri, I mean, as a global head of sustainability for the food and feed segment, I look after at entire supply chain, which in different food, feed, and fiber at Olam Agri works. We are basically driving towards nature positive, climate positive, and livelihood positive goals, and really trying to work with smallholder farmers and making sure that we are trying to see more regenex space, trying to develop solutions at both traceability as well as ensuring that the biodiversity of the soil or microbial diversity is enriched and things like that. So without further ado, I mean, let me introduce to the first keynote speaker, Andrea, who is a project senior leader at Beanstalk Agtech, based in Singapore, and who is going to map the landscape for us. At Beanstalk, she leads projects spanning digital agriculture, food security assessment, agri-tech, commercialization, and NGO advisory across Southeast Asia and the Pacific. Without further ado, before all this panel gets further excited in developing in making sure how this missing, third gets discussed in detail, let's hear from Andrea about the work that she has been carrying out at Beanstalk Agtech. Over to you, Andrea. Thank you. You're on mute, Andre, if you're speaking.
Oh, sorry about that. It's such a challenge to do the prelude for all of these wonderful people that are here, because we're all here to talk about what is very important, the missing third, and it's going beyond just productivity. We are not framing this as only as a productivity issue, but as an opportunity for climate mitigation. And the numbers back this up. So as we know right now, 15% of the regional GDP is based on agriculture. It remains one of the main economic backbones for the region. And that is not only for Southeast Asia, also for South Asia. And we do see that in the future, we're going to be having a push for the increase of the demand of food. We see a rated increase of the 40% to 2050. And this is driven not only by population growth, urbanization, rising incomes, but this is also making the system asked to deliver more output, less arable land, and under more climate stress. So what we also see is that there is an opportunity. There is a 90 billion opportunity that can be unlocked through the digitalization, Agtech adoption, and overall improvement of the region by 2033. But these are only headline numbers because there is a very big problem, and that is that there is no Southeast Asian market. There is no Southeast Asian region. We do have a lack of you cannot do a single product to ship. You cannot have a single playbook that you can just use to scale across borders. What we have is a nexus of fragmented value chains, of fragmented markets. We have seen businesses operating in isolation from each other. So the problem here is not a total addressable market issue, is a targeting problem to pick a specific commodity, a specific corridor, a specific business model to a specific customer, and to prove the unit economics that drive it. So taking into this starting condition, just to set up how we are and all of the different commodities that we are creating, I would like you to look at this small slide. And what do we have here is part of the result of some work that we did alongside ICASEPS and Universitas Brawijaya in Indonesia. And what we wanted to do is map a little bit of the digital tools that are being currently used within the Indonesian agricultural landscape. And what we saw is that among adopting farmers, specifically adopting farmers, most of the technologies that are being used are in planting and in maintenance, quite a bit in harvesting, in marketing. But if we look at post-harvesting, it's 2.1%. Only 2.1% of all of the technologies that are currently being used by the farmers are in this area that FAO already shared that 1/3 of all of the food produced for human consumption is lost. And only 2.1% is targeting this small space. And it is not a matter of, oh, we are lacking the technology, we are lacking the innovation. No, we have a lot of great technology solutions being created by people. And the gap exists because we have silos. We have many cases of technology for the sake of technology. We have cases in which only one solution is pinpointed towards one particular pain point. There is no integration among these solutions. And we also see some of the cases in which software is not enough. And more when we're dealing about post-harvesting. And post-harvesting is very complex because it's not only about an app. There is a whole underlying infrastructure behind it. It is analysis. It is ensuring compliance. It's ensuring the whole chain is all integrated. So it's a very complex environment with very low usage of solutions right now. So in a recent report that we did, we had some key learnings alongside Ryder and Omnivore funded by Bank, is that first and foremost, going direct to farmer is very expensive. The cost of acquiring a smallholder farmer, onboarding them, maintaining them, and ensuring that they have this ongoing market access is very, very high. And it's not that it's wrong to do farmer-facing technology, it's just that it is not the default. Most of the most successful solutions right now are the ones that are targeting farmer groups, cooperatives, agribusinesses, and those that allow the struggle to find unit economics much easier. The second one is unit economics with the market size. We were talking about targeting a specific commodity in a specific market, but it's also about making the system make sense, not just jumping because the market makes sense and because the venture capital required that very high value. The unit economics have to be very clarified before continuing on ongoing growth. And on the same side of growth, expansion is risky and very costly. And that is because going into a new market is a new set of rules. It's a new set of regulation, a new set of networks. So just jumping for the sense of rapid expansion also is not working in the region. And we saw some cases of failures in the ecosystem due to this particular case. But we do have some models that have been quite successful. We have some archetypes that are being successful. The first one is traceability anchored in compliance. So we see that regulations are the ones that are, in a way, forcing the usage of best practices, the usage of new technologies. And we see many solutions trying to address this issue because of many commodities that have this export value within the region. palm oil, cocoa, coffee. The second one is trade data underwriting, or the famous data for bankability. And that is, instead of relying on the traditional land-based collateral, to use transaction history, yield data, repayment patterns to underwrite the credit. And this is bridging the gap for financing that all of SMEs are facing in order to invest in better post-harvest infrastructure. Then we have parametric climate risk. We have industry-led collaborative research that have been jumping from pilots and now into more commercial scale. And this has been pushed not only by the private side, but also we have a lot of organizations participating in this research to make it more addressable by the farmers. We do have B2B integrated value chain platforms, which are one of the most valuable here in this ecosystem. And there are companies like Chikin, like Jala in Indonesia that are integrating IoT, data management, and not only optimizing the production, but ensuring that there is an existing linkage to the value chain and to the potential client. And finally, we have waste valorization and circular economy, in which we are turning waste into a new source of revenue. We are turning the waste into protein, into bio inputs. So this also has that climate twist. And these are not only the models that work, but these are the ones that are more aligned right now and the ones that we see a little bit more success. But what is also important is that we have an understanding of the framing. When we see a lot of technologies, we think yields, production, improvement, optimization, and that is good. But it's not the only framing. It's an incomplete framing because we do have these productivity tools, but they are also climate mitigation assets. If we optimize the cold chain, we are also avoiding methane emissions. If we are valorizing our food waste, we are having circular carbon. If we have precision agriculture, we are avoiding overproduction. So that is the lens that we should be having towards a lot of these innovations. And I know that a lot of the people here are deeply involved into pushing for that kind of value. And that value is not only on how we perceive these solutions, but also on the capital that is being unlocked by that. So right now we see that the most successful models, the most successful capital stack are those ones that include blended finance models, in which we combine equity, credit, and concessional capital through the participation of different actors because of the high risk environment. And we have the very strong participation of DFIs and impact investors who provide more patient and risk-sharing capital, and this de-risks the markets. So this is not only about jumping and finding the next unicorn, it is about finding opportunities that are addressing real challenges, that are addressing, in some cases, the bottlenecks of the big corporates within the region, but also to do it through a pathway that is ensuring impact and ensuring the collaboration, not only in the execution, but also in the investment. And I would love to continue more onward and onward, but I know only have 10 minutes and we have to jump onto the panel. But thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much, Andre, on really giving us the full map. I mean, on making sure what's working, what are the bottlenecks, and honestly, when I see that kind of a pressure that we have, like the 40% more demand is going to increase, and with the GDP of that 15%, which you mentioned, those kind of things are really the real things, and we have to cope up with all that kind of a production that needs to come up and match those kind of demands. So there is a huge challenge in front of all of us, whether it is private sector or is it the government bodies, or everyone. It's for the food security of the people, right? So we have to ensure that all these gaps that we are talking about gets filled up, And at Olam Agri, we work with nearly 400,000 farmers, smallholder farmers. So we do see those challenges also. Like I really like when you said, Andre, that not all things can be brought down to smallholder farmers ultimately. So how do we bring the value back all the way to the smallholder farmers? Like precision agriculture, it's great, but that works mainly for large farmers. How do we then bring that precision agriculture more in the form that will be adaptable and scalable for the smallholder farmers is the key thing. And I think this really goes, I would say, of how this panel is actually stationed at the complete ecosystem level, whether we talk about traceability solutions. So we have Ainu Rofiq from Koltiva, who basically has co-founded Koltiva in 2013 after working on cocoa projects in Aceh, and is now operating in 30 countries with over 400,000 farmers. And followed by that, we also have another speaker who is at the nexus of multi-stakeholder partnership, and Insan Syafaat, or Ino, who leads the PISAgro partnership for Indonesia's sustainable agriculture, and for the Grow Asia's country partnership in Indonesia, who convenes the government, private sector, civil society, and financial institution together. And then we have at the downstream level, Ms. Tripti Bhadoria, who is the founder of Rejuvrth and built Singapore urban organic waste recovery and circular economy infrastructure, and operates a decentralized composting network and divert organic materials from landfills and generates measurable methane avoidance outcomes. And lastly, the nexus of the capital, we have Shubhadeep Sanyal, who is from Wave Maker Impact and is leading the India expansion at Wave Maker Impact, rebranding as 100 by 100 Group. And we would like to learn more about what this 100 by 100 Group means. And Southeast Asia's first climate tech venture, Build VC. I would like this panel to be spotlighted so that everyone can be then seen at one go. And with that, I would like to pass and open the conversation to really ask that we have seen about food waste. We have talked about food loss. All these are different, but part of the same value chain. So from your own perspective, from your respective organizations, I would like you to see that, is it first of all same? And if it is, how do your interventions actually connects at these two, food loss or food waste, together? So maybe I will start after Andrea with Eno, if Eno can be spotlighted as well. Here from PISAgro, how do you see that at the nexus of multi-stakeholder platform, how do you bring everyone together and then drive this food loss and food waste agenda together? Over to Eno.
Thanks, Shal. Hi, everyone. Good evening, good morning. So just a bit of advertisement. PISAgro, the Partnership for Indonesia Sustainable Agriculture, we're a group of private sector. Think of it as Chamber of Commerce and Industry, but more focused on agriculture. So this is a group of agribusinesses from upstream to downstream. But our focus is to transform all the supply chain down to the smallholder. And at the core of our business is to establish partnerships, essentially, Cheryl and everyone. So to be inclusive, to include, to invite our farmer, smallholder, who are the very core, the most essential part in the Indonesia agriculture sector, and are dominating the landscape, right? At the core, we built this multi-stakeholder partnerships. Is not a it's no stranger to most of us, actually, who have done or now been part of the multi-stakeholder approach. At PISAgro, we call it inclusive closed loop models. Um, but the most significant part and the most unique part of this is because we do not treat farmer, smallholder as beneficiaries, Cheryl. We are treating them as part of the system, ecosystem, as business partner. So what we do as private sector is not a CSR. This is rather creating shared value. So CSV. So with that approach, that belief, with that strategy, we believe in the long-term relationship. So it's not just transaction, right? Business transactions. Once we understand the landscape, once we understand the supply chain, and we'd like to, of course, increase their welfare. We think of growth, productivities, income, but we also think of their resilience, especially in the case of, COVID just happened, and then of course the sustainability, which is not focused on the environment. So this is what we do. This is the those companies who are joining us understand that supply chains are very important. We need to transform them, and basically to be there. It's hand holding. We provide the many accesses that they need, so that would ensure uh, the most advanced business ecosystem with the inclusive closed loop model for the farmers. So that's basically it. With I could mention some of the case, but essentially because we understand the lack of many accesses from the for the farmer and smallholder, especially in the plantations area when they do good agriculture practices. We teach them with capacity buildings, of course, with high quality seeds and agri perfect agri input amounts and all that. That would minimize the food loss essentially at the upstream part. And in hope that at that process, because we try to transform that, that also would happen with at the food waste part. So this is essentially what we do, Shale. Again, it's inclusive closed loop. This is no stranger, multi-stakeholder. But the key is the hand holding. The key is for private sector to be there day to day, and make sure that these small farmer and all the part at value chains are getting the many accesses that they need. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and I think very well said. I mean, all have to be joining hands together. I mean, whether it is government sector or it's private sector, all have to be on the same boat, and we have to drive it together. Maybe now let me pass it to Aino from Koltiva. As we have heard, I know that Andre mentioned that only 2% of the digital agriculture support reaches to the post-harvest stage. So from your boots on the ground and developing such digital solution, what do you think are the key challenges, and how do you think has Koltiva overcome that?
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening. So basically, before I answer your question, I would like to introduce about CultiFarm, what we are doing. Basically, we are a global sustainable agriculture and supply chain traceability company. We blend the software and also boots on the ground services like mapping, digitized smallholder farmer, verified global supply chain from seed to table. Essentially, Koltiva acts a bridge connecting smallholder farmer in emerging market with multinational enterprises that to prove their ingredient or are ethically and sustainably sources. Basically, we have three triple tech approach. We have Agri-Tech with combined trace and skills, so combine digital farm profiling, GPS polygon land mapping, transaction tracking, and also direct field coachings. This help multinational buyers or multinational manufacturers achieve full traceability to plantation and effortlessly comply with, as Andrea mentioned, strict global regulation like EUDR. And the second thing is about, we also introduced to the rural smallholder farmer digital fintech or digital wallet, basically on cashless transactions, payment, crop insurance, responsible micro loans to secure verified and high quality agriculture input. So, and then the last thing is about the climate tech. We deliver land use risk alerts, deforestation monitoring, and farm level greenhouse gas emission or assessment to help enterprise track and execute scope 3 decarbonization target. By the numbers, we operate So far in 94 countries, we cover more than 68 diverse commodities, including cocoa, coffee, palm oil, and coconuts, and also several commodity in blue economy such as seaweed, shrimps. So basically, so far we support more than 19,000 corporate enterprises with empowering more than 2 million. I need to little bit 400,000 is only for Indonesia. So, but in global, almost more than 2.1 million registered producers. Yeah, and in terms of food loss, Koltiva help to prevent food loss by basically digital traceability ecosystem, which map supply chain from seed to table and optimize post-harvest handling by connecting smallholder farmers, agribusinesses, processor, and also manufacturers that could eliminate inefficient that cause food to spoil or get lost during the transit. So basically, Koltiva help to mitigate, not directly involved on the reducing the food loss, but help the mitigate food loss through several key operations such as end-to-end traceability. We have app that could provide real-time visibility to movement of the crops from smallholder from the first mile into the company level. So to allow company to locate the track shipment instantly, reducing misplaced, delay, or spoil inventory as commodity travel from rural to the international market. So basically, that's what our effort or our contribution into the food loss. And the second thing is about digital transaction management. So basically, we digitize farm to warehouse or manufacturers by replacing manual records because business as usual. From farmer never have a record, trader some may use records, but on paper or an Excel file. But with digital platform, even farmer also have we provide the app for the farmer so they can also see the record for every transaction they made or every delivery they made. So then with all the end-to-end traceability real time, so stakeholder can ensure the exact volume, quality, delivery dates, and strictly monitors. So minimize with this, we try to minimize loss due to administrative error or prolonged handling because some of the commodity that we handle is quite sensitive with time and also with delivery. And post-harvest training, I admit what Andrea mentioned during her presentations. That's why the technology itself, the technology cannot solve everything. That's why we deploy our field agents because I have a background from the projects that support, empower smallholder farmer and connect with the multinational buyers. So basically, we provide goods on the ground services to coach producer with good agricultural practices. This also include proper post-harvest handling, like sortation, processing techniques, and maintain crop quality and shelf life. So in case, for example, in cocoa, yes, farmer could store 3 until 6 months. But if without proper handling, then the quality will then reduce. Then the manufacturer or trader even reject. So we help the farmer on how to manage the post-harvest handling because you see like smallholder farmer for crop like cocoa, coffee, they store on their warehouse and waiting the price like because they're waiting the good prices. So basically, because most of the farmer that we support, they also part of the certification scheme. So then it's part of the effort that we need to support not only the industry who need to get support from the farmer, but also on the farmer level. So and then the lastly is about integrated supply chain solutions. So because we not only track and trace the commodity, the result from the farm, but also we have the app to track and trace distribution of agri inputs, which also related with the post-harvest, right? So how we make sure that farmer using good pesticide or not ban pesticide, etc. Because then it will, if the farmer, smallholder farmer using ban pesticide, then the factory or the industry will then reject the product. So then the quality, the local part, and then the smallholder farmer will send to like normal market with low price, etc. So this is something that we try to develop and implement with our clients, with for sure that with focusing on how we ensure the supply chain from smallholder farmer into their factory or the manufacturer are recorded, and also provide not only good agriculture to improve the quality, but also improve the yield, but also improve the quality. So I think that's I hope that answered your question.
Thanks, and a very well point and very well put, rather. I mean, honestly, at Olam Agri, I mean, post-harvest loss, I mean, what we have also developed and in our Nigeria supply chain in rice, what we have found, through post-harvest training, we were able to reduce the losses by 30 to 40%. That has improved the overall income by some X-folds and reduced the GHG emissions by further 20%. So, I mean, this kind of trainings has really helped in making sure that the losses are being avoided. Similarly, such kind of data we have also seen in our rice supply chain in ASEAN regions as well. So very well put, actually, and this is what we have also felt at Olam Agri. We are at when we have farmer programs with those smallholders, that yes, traceability solutions are available, and yes, it can be, but ultimately that kind of extension staff, that kind of proper training, whether it is regen ag solutions or gap training on the good agriculture practices, or in terms of post-harvest loss reduction, that becomes the key. So maybe now let me pass on to now Tripti. I mean, she's at the more on the downstream side, and we all know, like wild food harvest. I mean, the waste at the harvest stages is super important, but at the downstream side, the food loss is equally important as well, because ultimately we need to start avoiding that going to the landfill. So let's hear from Tripti from the urban ecosystem that she has been operating in. How does she see this nexus coming together, and what are the key challenges you have been facing, Tripti, and would love to hear what solutions Rejuvrth is providing in Singapore, and would love to hear more. Thanks.
Thanks, Shell. Just to answer that, I feel that the whole theory of food loss, food waste is basically a conceptual convenience, because in reality, the systemic issue remains the same. The symptoms are, the underlying failure also remains the same, which is the lack of visibility of the supply chain, the circular integration, and decentralized resilience. So if I talk about that, that the demand side fluctuations and the demand side behavior impact the food loss at the upstream level. But are we able to build those connections? There is a gap in understanding whether we treat these two things like two sides of a pipe. And that's what it is, two sides of a pipe, because it was never designed to be a circular structure. So we don't combine. So I really urge the practitioners to look at it from that perspective, that food loss and food waste eventually is impacting the entire supply chain, and we cannot look at it in isolation. Like I will, from the demand side, I want to quote an example of looking at Agri-Food, or what we call Agri-Food, but a perfectly nutritious, healthy food which is not being picked up at the supermarket. If it is picked up, so by the time it reaches the supermarket and it is discarded, it goes into food waste. But this food, one should has there should be provision either at the farmer's end to be able to provide it another life through processing facilities, or this once there should be an incentive for Agri-Food for the retail outlets. Like that mindset has to change. So the demand side mindset is somewhere influencing the food loss in there. And then talking about our work here in the urban landscape of Singapore. So the stringent centralized supply chain, when it bears the shock, then in that case that is going to influence like a single supply chain, because it's so centralized that so what we at Rejuvrth advocate is the decentralized model, and an agile supply chain, wherein the farmers have access to the city. And the more we reduce the friction on this, the more we reduce the loss and the waste as well. However, in case of Rejuvrth, our work with the communities, we have seen that just as we don't understand where our food is coming from most of the time, we don't understand where our waste is going. So it's a problem. Again, the same ecosystem. We have to understand that we have to be mindful of the fact that this food waste is wasted carbon. This was grown with a lot of energy, and now we will put equal energy to to convert it into carbon. So it's a threefold loss to us. So that is the understanding which we need to have as a society, and which will only come when we have the visibility to the supply chain. While working with communities, we have realized that the shorter the distance for our food, the better it is. Similar, the shorter the distance for our waste, the better it is. And eventually, we will have to create that decentralized ecosystem wherein the waste and our food manages in our small communities. And probably that is what will take us to food security as well. I hope I have answered you, Shalin. Thank you.
Thanks, Dipti. And I think it's a very good yes. I like your saying that we as we need to know where our food is coming from, we need to know where our waste is going from. And as after spending almost 2 decades in Singapore, I mean, I really think and I feel like, with this urban ecosystem that we are in, I mean, we really need to ensure where is this organic waste going on? Where is this moving forward? From here, I think, like what I understand, yes, we do have, at a policy level, whether like traceability solution, as Koltiva mentioned, ultimately all comes through, like for example, in like EUDR, for example, right? I mean, traceability becomes the biggest important factor there, right? So all these policy changes and those kind of ultimately moving towards avoidance of these losses require some kind of joining hands, and that requires a lot of impact fundings and things like that. So maybe with this, I would like to now pass to Shubhadeep. I mean, what we have seen in this nexus, like we do have Agtech solutions, we do have digital solutions available at this platform itself. You have heard quite a bit of Agtech solutions here. I mean, whereas sometimes the real infrastructure problems and those kind of solutions on implementation at the ground level can be less funded or not much. Do you see that, first of all? And if yes, how do you, as Wavemaker Impact, address that bottleneck and how to scale those programs? Thanks.
Thank you, Sharon, and very interesting to hear everyone's perspectives. So I think for to address your question, jumping in, and I'll weave in what we do at Wavemaker Impact. But I think and maybe I have a little more India context as well, because I spent about 14 years with Omnivore, which invests across agri-tech ventures in India. I think one of the key learnings for me was that a lot of the solutions which came about in the last 15 years focused on smallholder farmers were very solution driven, if that makes sense. So you had a lot of technology first thinking, of creating ideal solutions, the best IoT sensor, the best NIR technology, which can become portable for assessment of moisture or gluten. And I think lesser credence was given to how do you take them to market? Like who's the customer and who pays for it? Those were questions which I think founders grapple with later on, right? And which is why we see the typical gestation period for adoption of any new agri technology to be almost decadal rather than 3 years or 5 years, which is the typical tech adoption curve for a lot of other industries. So that's point number one. So one of the ways in which I think folks can solve across this and this period where the first wave of agri-tech has happened over South and Southeast Asia across both economies. And the collective learning is that we shouldn't try and force fit a great solution onto a problem, right? It's the other way around. So keep your user at the center, figure out the correct incentive, which is enough for them to adopt. So, and maybe I'll qualify that with an example. One of the companies that we ended up building at Wavemaker Impact, and we're a slightly separate outfit than a regular fund. So we end up coming in with our own thesis around decarbonization and emissions reduction, and then partner with experienced founders to co-build the company and then invest in them, right? So a lot more hands-on, operational in nature, intentional about our carbon reduction targets. So one of the businesses that got built out operates in Indonesia and Vietnam today called RISE, RIZE. Now, RISE is basically, at the cusp of it, it looks like we're trying to address the methane problems in paddy, which we all understand is bountiful across Asia. And how do we do low methane rice, right? So the technology kind of exists. Alternate wetting drying has existed for a very long time agronomically. The missing link was the incentive, that how do you get a farmer who is anyways dealing with multiple stakeholders, vagaries of nature, capital, this and that. Pricing is probably the only stakeholder who doesn't get to price their own product, right? So how do you get a farmer to really take agronomic advice from you and say that, hey, if you do X, Y, Z, there is a better outcome awaiting you, right? Um, and the plug that we found was that if you're able to give them a better assortment of inputs and break the shackles of localized input financing, so reduce the cost of input financing for the season, that's a good enough incentive for them to be open to you and saying that, okay, now I have an agronomist who will come. I will also learn what this AWD is about, and I will do ABC steps additionally because I'm getting access to great quality inputs on time and at a cost which I can absorb. So the business looks like an input financing business, but essentially what we're trying to do through the intervention is to say that can we produce low carbon rice, right, through AWB? And then, of course, there is, credits and all of that, which is a later on and, with scale that is a additional revenue which can come to the company. But at the very core of it, what you're trying to do is taking to factor the behavioral aspect of the stakeholder and trying to take a solution which may be technologically not so advanced, but it's ready to deploy today and find the right incentive to marry the two, right? So that is kind of one way. And this particular case was interesting. It brought a lot of capital around the table with the likes of Temasek and Breakthrough and others who saw this as an interesting wedge as well to try. And the business is kind of scaled to become, EBITDA profitable within 3 years, $15-20 million in top line. So these can be done, right? If you intentionally want to build such businesses. So I guess the point I'm trying to make is that, again, I've had that, we've always, even in the past, I've seen a lot of businesses and startups focusing on, hey, let me try and take this technology and fit it through smallholders. And then we will figure out who pays for it. Maybe those are questions we should invert while building, right? And that's the kind of learning and maybe the stake I want to kind of put in the ground for now.
Thanks, Shubhadeep. And this is very well said, the last statement which you just mentioned. I mean, honestly, sometimes I feel smallholders have been like, we have been doing this for years, and you are now coming in with all different solutions. And also, I liked your point about your incentivization. Ultimately, who pays, right? So that becomes a major driver. And this is at Olam also, we are somewhere in the middle in the supply chain where we are, ultimately downstream players are going to bring that perspective, or ultimately it has to reach to the farmers, right? So they should be the one who should be incentivized. And that's why I personally feel, the 4P model, which is public private philanthropic partnership, is what that I mean at Olam Agri, we are evangelizing quite a lot, because ultimately everyone has to join hands together. So maybe since this is all about public private partnership, I mean, I would like to turn it to I mean, at PIS Agro, I mean, what do you think, I mean, with the PPP partnerships that at multi-stakeholder level you have been driving, I mean, at policy level in Indonesia, can you take some examples of successful examples where you have seen that this PPP partnerships have proven from pilot to a scale, because that's where the key is, right? Everything comes at amazing at a pilot level, but how do we scale to make sure it is very, very impactful? Thank you.
That is a difficult question, Shell, but thank you for asking that. But you are very, very right. At pilot level, it's always easy. Small number of farmer, small area. But when it comes to scaling up, that's where the homework is, right? That's really where the challenge is. That means that we want to involve more and more farmer. We want to replicate. We want to, in terms of like economy, we want to increase twice or three times of their productivity. We want to provide them with a larger and wider access of markets. Even trying to introduce the right technology, right, for better future. And of course, access to finance is also important. There are numbers of successful, I would say, examples at PISAgro. We're multi commodities essentially, and we have now worked, engaged, and partnered with more than 2.8 million of smallholder. Um, so that means that our inclusive closed loop model have worked for some cases. But maybe I could bring an example of few commodities like palm oil with their replanting project, cocoa with their cocoa industry, cocoa landscape with their cocoa doctor and agroforestry project, and then corn with the introductions of using hybrid seed for feed. But that essentially, as I said, is because the environment, the ecosystem is there. I know when we talk about palm oil, it's always been talked about. Even at Indonesia, it's the golden, it sets golden examples for multi stakeholders. But for other commodities like cocoa, corn, even our coffee, they're starting to step up the ladder for this multi stakeholder approach. Um, and I guess government also recognizes more and involves more in that multi stakeholders approach as well. I mean, there are more welcome to recommendations, policy recommendations. Even at PISAgro, we exercise what we call unified narrative, Shal and everyone. The unified narrative is some sort of blueprint coming from private sector that includes current situations, challenge, key success factor, and ends with a list of policy recommendations. And then we do a more deep of that white paper, that what we call policy recommendations. So we have a list in the previous documents, and then we go deeper in the other documents, which means these are essentially what is needed by the landscape, by the commodities, and private sector is essentially are ready to support the governments. Um, National governments, obviously, they kind of like more open to this policy recommendations. But then the homework in Indonesia is how we uh, be able to work with provincial and district level, right? Because they have to be the front run, and clearly every 5 year that might be different strategy, different idea, change of people. So ensuring that the involvement of provincial or district government ensure that not only involvement, not only coordinations, but making sure that that unified narrative or policy recommendations that we built with, that we have managed or coordinated with national governments, can be implemented. That's for sure. So if then the provincial and district governments involved, then for us, we will be ready, and we're happy to always replicate and scale of what we're doing. That, but also there's always this difficulties in terms of, you know, for instance, finance, access of finance is one of the most difficult. um I'm not sure if you guys familiar with the Indonesian landscape of farmer, but farmers are very scattered. Most of them are sitting in the green areas, but also some of them are sitting in the red areas. This is easy, green and red, but gray areas are tricky because we want also to involve to include them, but also we want to make sure that their status of, are eligibles, and they are capable of complying to all the requirements to get not only conventional fundings but also some sort of like microcredits from the governments or grants for the governments, but also how we then scale what we're doing with blended finance, for instance, the PPP for fundings, and then but that would require a longer and more requirements probably. So a lot of things to make one case or cases be able to be replicated or scaled. There always this challenge, but at PISAgro we always try to. This is our day-to-day job. We connect, we facilitate, and we convene dialogue, making sure that all, and this is also important, Shal, making sure that each and everyone involved are doing the right role. Something gets mixed up, right? You want to be the executor, but you also want to be advising the governments and whatnot. So making sure that those roles are done right, also important. I'll give it back to you, Shal. Thank you.
Thanks. Very well said about access to finance. The key things that I'm taking away: access to finance, policy things have to come in. So I would like to turn this to Rejuvrth. I mean, how do you see this policy? I mean, you are sitting at Singapore has a massive zero waste master plan, yet food waste remains one of the largest streams, right? Given that at Singapore, the current waste infrastructure is built primarily for highly centralized energy waste incineration. What practical hurdles do decentralized grassroots upscaling platform do you see, and how policy changes can help in making sure that it becomes a success?
Thanks, Shell. If you look at Singapore, we are a very efficient system, and it has worked for us till now. We have 100% managing our waste. The emphasis is on hygiene, and the emphasis is on taking care of the environment as well. However, that approach is not working for us anymore. And the two considerations behind that is that the food security and climate resilience. I mean, we are wasting our organic waste, which can again the same. We are spending a lot of energy in incinerating our waste, while we do have a possibility of creating a decentralized model in which we can utilize this organic waste to regenerate our soils. I mean, I keep saying this, that I visualize a edible garden city, Singapore as an edible garden city. We are already a garden city. So if we can be a garden city, we can be an edible garden city. So we have to look at our food security and food resilience from that perspective. And I mean, in our work, what we have noticed is there was a lot of blurriness amongst participants on what exactly is the right approach. Like a lot of people were like, is composting even good? Are we supposed to do composting? Can we do composting? Questions like that. But this is emerging from the fact that although this mindset is changing slowly, what is the challenge with the companies like us is we are competing with companies who are highly subsidized for waste management. So we cannot compete with them. And that is where the whole logistics of taking organic waste to a off-taking site is going to be, will never be able to match up with the cost which a centralized infrastructure is offering. So if we want to move towards organic waste segregation, which is another issue, that we need to look at segregation, and we cannot push it. We have a sequential in the country. A lot of retail outlets are required by law to process their food waste. However, at the residential level, at the communities level, this is not mandatory. So it may not be. So eventually, I feel that we need to reach there, a complete segregation, because food waste is in itself is one waste stream, but we are also polluting our recyclables and we are polluting our other waste as well. So energy loss on that aspect is also there. So if the primary friction points which I see in this is the lack of segregation, the lack of the non-availability of subsidy, and lack of interest from capital as well to invest in funds in an urban landscape like this. Because eventually the communities are benefiting from it, but probably the projects like these get stuck between whether the government should fund it or whether the philanthropy should fund it, or whether there is another angle which another funder who want to fund it. So I guess these are some of the biggest challenges which we face in our work. Thank you.
Thanks, Tripti. And I think these are one of the key challenges. Yes, I can completely understand. I think the audience, please don't be shy. I mean, feel free to pose your questions in the chat as well. I'm reading some of them. I mean, this I would like to ask Andrea from the Beanstalk. I mean, question about the seeds, I mean, one of the drivers of biodiversity loss is the unified use, right, of anything, which degrades genetic diversity, which is true. I mean, the monoculture and those kind of things are one of the key that skews the biodiversity. In terms of the productivity resilience balance, how do you see this factor playing on food loss with the smallholders? I mean, if you have any light on that, or if anyone else wants to jump in, but over to Andre first.
Yeah, we don't have much working on that space, but what we do see is a little bit on the innovators that are building on these bio solutions, and they are facing a similar situation because all of the inputs are being unified, the same input, because it's cheaper, it's easier to access, and that is always a challenge for the farmer, and that is always a challenge for each of the communities. But I think one of the main things that we should be focusing on is a little bit on how information, how knowledge is flowing, how the availability is also being driven by how things are shared from one person to another. So the reality that we are seeing, for example, in Indonesia, is that many people do what their neighbors are doing. So we see a lot of peer-to-peer learning, peer-to-peer sharing. So if we do have this unified sense, then it's going to be further propensed by that. But we also see the participation, the role of some extension advisors. So that is where a lot of information flows, not only from the official extension officers employed by the government, but also the extension advisors that are brought in by the agribusinesses, the innovators, the presence of the Petani millennial, that are the young farmers that are trying to drive innovation in the ecosystem. So the way to avoid just getting stanked into one only solution is to increase the flow of innovation, increase the flow of information.
Thanks, Andrea. And honestly, I mean, this is the same thing at Olam Agri when we also see that we take time to understand who is the model farmer. Then, once you identify that could be the model farmer, then then we have those trainings on all different aspects so that that farmer can then bring it to another community. So that kind of a TOT, trainer of the trainers, is what we also adopt in. And that has helped extensively for us to grow that network and have those kind of, trainings develop further. I think in the interest of time, if there is anyone else they would want to chip in on this biodiversity loss angle. I know perhaps you have worked with smallholders quite extensively. Have you have you seen this on soil productivities and those kind of things? From
Yeah, just recently, because yeah, first of all, what we are doing basically get farmer on board, right, and connect to the supply chains, the global supply chains, and we just recently, I think since last year, we do some nature-based solutions projects and also regenerative agriculture, with aiming to increase the soil health. But still, like this is like first or 2 years pilot projects, and we also introduced this we established like the demo plot for regenerative agriculture and nature-based solution for monocrops. I don't want to mention the company and also the commodity, but because we still like conduct the pilot projects, but with the current scheme, what we need is to understand as well the culture, because we do some projects in Sumatra, we do some projects in Kalimantan, and also in Java. The culture are different. Like in Sumatra, they love durians. So the first place when we introduce the complete of demo plot, complete package for demo plot, we need to discuss with them. We not just like, okay, we need to plant these trees to accommodate, to improve the soil health. We cannot just like push the farm. We need to discuss with them. So now we are on the pilot projects. I believe in the next 6 months until 1 year, we will have the result. We will measure the soil health, etc., before and after, before we introduce the project, and then at least 1 year after the introduce project, we will have the result, and then hopefully the NGOs, private sector could also create or develop public-private partnership to scale up. Because the thing is, sometimes we are good in time pilot projects, but the problem is when we need to scale up, because for sure it needs investment. But with the holistic approach, we support the smallholder farmer. They understand the approach, and they involve on the approach. And there's a lot of multi-crops in one hectare or 2 hectare demo plot. We will measure also the income from all the commodities that we planted. For sure, so like durian, it needs 5-6 years, but for the others, like natural ingredient and other commodity, we can measure after 6 until 1 year the income. So if we can then showcase this result to everybody, then yeah, hopefully it will become like a trigger, an investment that industry also understand, because beside the regulatory compliance, actually the industry need to invest, because if they're not acting, farmer will reduce with the climate change. Farmer will, like, first of all, reduce the quality and also reduce the yield. If it happen, the industry will not receive the same quality or same product and same volume. So we need to act together, invest on the smallholder farmer, on the farm level, in terms of soil health and also regenerative agriculture.
Thank you. I know, and honestly, very good. Interesting that you are also moving in soil health. Soil health is key to my heart as well. I mean, I'm a soil scientist myself, and if I wear a scientist hat, I mean, honestly, microbial ecology below ground, the soil health below ground is the key to everything. Whether you talk about biogeochemistry or about the growing cycles or about the yield, everything is about soil. If we start investing in soil, and that's where regen ag, nature livelihood, nature positive and climate positive goals, I think that's what all is so key. And when I talk about regen ag, I mean, honestly, it's specific to specific commodity. It includes about biodiversity. It talks about composting. It talks about multi-cropping. It talks about legumes coming in all from the exudates coming to the soil, supporting the enriched microdiversity, and also agroforestry. I mean, these are all mixed, all about the principles is what we are talking about soil health at Olam Agri, and this is what we truly believes in. But just, I mean, I know, and we are almost on time, but maybe one question before I give to everyone. I have one question for Subhadeep. I mean, I know you mentioned about, yes, physical assets, investments is also crucial, whereas Agtech is on the data and those things, right? Which one come first if we talk about in ASEAN supply chain? Or it's like a chicken and egg problem? Or is it all has to go hand in hand? Just in a few words, what do you think, Shubhadeep? And then I will like to, but the wrapping I will come back later. But over to you, Shubhadeep, on this first.
Okay, it could put me in a lot of trouble, but okay, here goes. I think so. If I look back and condense it, well, I think both of them have to go in tandem, and one can't exist without the other. If you're only kind of creating business as usual infra, whether it's people or machines, then we will not evolve, whether it's in terms of resilience, efficiency, any metric. But I think where we need more thought and action is for actors to work with each other. And maybe again, contextualize very quickly with an example from my past hat. Right? So a business in India called Bioprime, which is a biological inputs platform, right? Which basically looks at existing um, kind of strains in nature and then will plug them out, create a library, and try to create specific traits like salinity. How do you make crops more tolerant towards salt stress and water stress and whatnot? Again, focused on soil health and plant health. Now, for somebody which is a research-oriented business like that, if they have to deal with the distribution of said inputs in a market like India, Indonesia, which is very, very trade dominated by distributors, dealers, economics, etc., and working capital challenges, then essentially it dilutes the purpose of that venture beyond the point. So, a way in which one could start thinking about this is if my core strength as a business is some kind of technology, can I find a platform today, a partner today, to get to market much more easily, to commercialize much more easily? And I think that's the maturity that we now start to see in agtech across, because it was both ways for the platforms which have built in, let's say, a funnel into 100,000 farmers or 20,000 retail shops. They need more and more better quality products than what they have today, and they need the offering which can improve farmers' current and ongoing challenges. And for a company which is maybe very tech led, maybe they just have to then demonstrate at a very small scale that this works with maybe a few hundred farmers or a few hundred acres, and then the co-commercialization can happen together. Everyone loses less money, the impact comes faster, right? So I guess that is what I would maybe position. It's not a trade-off or one versus the other anymore.
I know I put you on an extremely difficult spot, but it's good to hear your perspective. So maybe from all the panelists, I mean, in just maximum of 1 minute, if I have to ask, I've heard from the organizers that this is going to happen. The next will be more in person and in November or so. I mean, if that happens, what you would like to see in this few months, the most critical thing that should change and how your organization can help. And maybe I would like to, of course, in the topic of rescuing the missing third, right? So I would like to start with Beanstalk. So Andre, over to you. Followed by, I would like to go to Ino from PISAgro, then to Ainu from Koltiva and Rejuvrth and Shubhadi. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So in our case, I think the main enemy are silos, but not the literal silos. The isolated technologies, the isolated stakeholder groups, the isolated sources of funding. So what I'm expecting to see, what I want to see is how can we further connect? How can we further connect to have more this capital architecture, to have these more integrated value chains? Like, I think connection is going to be key, and everybody has to have a voice in how we do so. So from our side, we are an innovation agency. So we have worked alongside innovators that are trying to get their solutions out into the field. And we know that that is always requires the support of everybody else to get it right. And we also work alongside NGOs and government organizations that are trying to enable the digital agriculture ecosystem within their own markets, in the particular case of Indonesia. So yeah, overall, going against the silos.
Thank you. Ino.
Thanks, Shal. I think we're pretty much good at, as I said, it's working on the growth for farmer, but also I think in terms of like trying to decrease on the food loss and food waste. I'd like to see in the future more um, exercises that spins around the inclusive closed loop. But our focus, I think, for this is not the farmer. I mean, farmer is always part of the focus, but also I think the regenerative agriculture, the implementations of more regenerative agriculture, climate smart, that needs more and more examples being implemented, support. We do have a specific group of regenerative agriculture, and we have managed to come up with components like soil, water, biodiversity, and carbon. And I think this would, if it's translated into or manage to be to factor it into this inclusive closed loop. I would say that in the future we could show you guys more on how the inclusive closed loop models then can also be include the how we could show the numbers of like the less the food lost or probably food waste from different part of commodities and different members of PISAgro. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ino. And Ainu, over to you.
As a services company, we have a lot of projects. We have together like public-private partnership projects, or like company who already invest in us together with us, like to support the smallholder farmer to get sustainable supply chain. But to connect with all the actors like finance, from the finance side, and also the agri inputs, including the government. We kind of in the middle of everyone, right? Because we provide services from end to end, our aim. But to work with this all like company, for sure they want to secure the supply chains, right? Trader, they want to secure the supply chain. Smallholder farmer, they want to get more and more, like more volume, more money, etc. And then government also have regulation. Also the global regulation. Not only like in national level, we have the regulation here in Indonesia. For example, for the EUDR, this is regulation from EU. But then Indonesia also they have regulation. I think the same things also in other countries. So we need sometime we want to focus on our services, but in the end we need to deal with all the like we need to deal with all like the stakeholder. That's not easy to maintain the collaboration between like from farmer into the manufacturer with the government, input supplier, finance, etc. So we have a lot of for sure like a difficulty sometime on how to convince all the things in one table. So what I want to see is like, I mean, not in the next few months or few years, like the global regulation not just like become like, okay, we need to develop the technology, we need to develop this and that. Like I think like 10 years ago we talk about blockchain technology, right? And now we talk about AI. But how to ground up all the technology and like and also adapt by smallholder farmer with economic price for everyone, everything. So I think it's quite difficult. So that's why I think collaboration is key. So, and lesson learned, sharing experience, sharing failure, sharing success. Like what I believe, what we did together with PISAgro, we have a lot of sharing experience, sharing lesson learned, challenge that we facing, like per commodity together, like on the closed loop solution. So I think that's like we are part also the supply chain, even though we are provide a service company. So if we collaborate together, discuss and share learning, then I believe we could achieve, especially on the soil health and also food loss that we discussed today. Thank
Wonderful.
you.
I know. And one thing I'm taking away from this is, of course, when you are talking about soil health, would love to discuss more. That's so key to the heart. And I can definitely see cross-pollinating many things over here. Tripti, I mean, over to you.
Thank you, Shail. So one thing I wanted to emphasize on that RAFT as a network was initiated because we wanted to bridge the gap between cooperatives, innovation, and finance. So this is my call to everybody in the meeting. And what we visualize for RAFT is that we are engaging people, we are engaging organizations, and we are trying to work in working groups. Join us, and let's bridge the gap, because the gap is that the innovation and sometimes innovation and the farmer is not talking to each other enough. So let's bridge that gap first, and I am sure finance will be available for a solution which is easily implementable for food loss and food waste equally. And like I said, let's address the supply chain in a circular manner. And we are hoping that by end of the year, when we are ready with our landscape study, we will be having more tangible solutions for both. And we want to progress into the next year with some pilots which we see the window to scale up as well. So thank you.
Thanks, Tripti. And very good that you finally added like which are fundable, relatable, but also scalable. So at the end, you added that is something the key, because solutions need to be scalable. That's the key, in my opinion. Shubhadeep, over to you.
Thanks everyone. I think um, I guess what we are echoing is action and kind of seeing more and more working examples. So I have nothing more on that side. What I think we would be happy to kind of work on and chip in to do our bit is expose kind of what we have working today, and invite whether there are partnerships possible to do exactly what Tripti said, to do pilots, to kind of make the point that, hey, this can be done with our existing, kind of companies. And also, maybe if the problem is deep enough, we can also work on it and try to kind of come up with the solution internally on it to create companies that way as well. So both hats available to collaborate. But I think the simple point is, if we have more working solutions, then I think whether it's policy or capital, it follows, right? Or as you correctly said, Cheryl, scale follows. So that would be my request and contribution respectively.
Thanks, Shubhadeep. And what I can summarize from all this, I mean, from the a wonderful conversation that we have, that solution exists and capital also exists. Just we need to talk to each other. We need to have solutions that are scalable and need to break those silos. The challenge is architectural, as we can say. We need financing that fits the risk profile of the physical infrastructure, policy that integrates fragmentation and demand signal from downstream that make the upstream investable. Such a wonderful session. Thanks, everyone. And with that, I would like to now pass it to Catalyst now, Ms. Sumati Krishnan, who is the co-chair at Catalyst Singapore chapter, to tell you how this raft is building up. Over to you, Madam
Thank
Sumati.
you. Thank you, Dr. Shailendra. It's really an honor for me to be here. Fantastic session. Within the last 3 months, I'm very happy to see the momentum this collaboration has gained. We started with identifying the problems, and today we saw so many solutions. As somebody who had been in the thick of the non-profit sector in India, I was aware of the participation of the public and the philanthropic, infusion into the system. But today, my big takeaway was the infusion of the private capital. We heard what has worked and also some of the challenges that Tripti mentioned, and also how we can further scale it up. Big thanks to Dr. Shailendra, because I could see that you brought in you're wearing two hats today, both as a climate scientist and as somebody who's embedded in the business ecosystem of food supply chain. So your questions, your background were very thoughtful, and it enriched the discussion a lot. So thank you so much for moderating this panel. And each of the panelists, really thank you so much for taking your time and sharing about your work. And also how we can be part of that work, right from Andrea, who laid the foundation with all your data, and then Inu and Ainu talking about some of the upstream aspects, Tripti talking about the downstream, and Subhadeep coming in with a very interesting perspective on the impact capital and what has worked and what can work. So really, on behalf of all the participants and Catalyst now, thank you so much. And I really see this growing as a very credible network. Please continue to be part of this. Big thanks to again other members of the collab. I see some of you here. I know Roma has done a lot of work. Thank you for doing all the hard work and keeping this collaboration going and keeping these events going. Rejuvrth for anchoring this with your continued support, and also organizing the events. Catalyst Now Secretariat, thank you for giving us the platform and doing all the background work, John and Ahmas. Thank you so much for this. And finally, but not the least, to the audience for your very engaged participation, for your questions. And, if you have been following the chat, Ahmas has already put the link for joining the collab. Maybe he could, or I think that was the last chat I see here. There is also the link for joining Catalyst Now membership. We are a small but trying to do meaningful work in Singapore. I would welcome you all to explore, and very happy to have an one-on-one chat also if there is interest. And we do an annual event in November, and like Tripti and Shailendra said, we do hope to have an in-person event around this collab. We are intending to grow this. I see that it is nearing the very critical pilot stage. And today it's a clarion call also for the investors to make use of this opportunity. It's an early bird opportunity for you to jump onto the collab in whatever capacity that you can contribute to. So please feel free to reach out to us. But let's try our best to fill or to close that gap that we have today to rescue the missing third. Thank you so much, everyone. If I've inadvertently missed anybody, my apologies. But thank you all, and have a great time. Yeah. Okay.
Goodbye,
Over to you,
everyone.
John.
Have a great
Goodbye.
evening.
John, if there is
Thank
anything
you,
else you have to say.
everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you,
Thank
Samati.
you.
Just want to thank everyone for joining this space.
Have
Cheers,
a good
everyone.
evening. Bye bye.